Welcome to One Block with Lubka. You already know what time it is. If you are sitting down watching this, it is time to stand the fuck up. So, since this is the first episode of this podcast, I want to kick it off with just introducing what it's about and what we're trying to do here. So, this podcast is about exploring with well-known Bitcoiners both the things in their life that they've done that have made the most differences for their health, their energy, values, and meaning. Like, what is it that they value and what is it that they've done in their lives that has really impacted them the most and helped them the most? And it's also about getting to know who these people are outside of Bitcoin. So we've all spent so much time listening to so many of these speakers on podcasts and on Bitcoin Twitter, and I thought it'd be interesting to just find out who these people are outside of their interest in Bitcoin. So for the first episode, I've got Tomer here with us. Tomer is well known in the Bitcoin space for doing a ton of different styles of content. This includes documentaries and videos, a huge amount of writing. He's published several books. So just a pleasure to be with you here today, man.
Oh, thank you. It's fun to be the guinea pig on the very first episode.
Yeah, thank you for doing it. Thank you for doing it. So let's kick things off.
Yeah.
First question I've got for you is, so what sort of practices, like what sort of things in your life have made the most difference for your health, your energy, your focus, your mindset, whatever it is?
Yeah.
What do you do regularly
Yeah.
that has just, you can't do without? What changes have you made that helped you?
Yeah. It's changed over the years, but there's always been some component of physical exercise, whether it's walking as you do and I do now, or it used to be just going to my basement. I had an elliptical machine and a PlayStation 3 and play games without being on the elliptical. Every time I died before I was allowed to respawn, I had to do 10 push-ups. And I used to, when I was younger, do a lot of canoeing and kayaking and other things on the water as often as I could. So that was always an experience that I would have, and it would put me in flow state, which I didn't know that that's what it was called at the time, but you know, I wasn't worried about another time. I was just present in the now, in the here and now.
Yeah.
With physical stuff. The same has been true of hobbies that I've practiced. At various points in time, I've had different hobbies where I've tried to master some skill. For me, many of them were like cooking related. I mastered barbecuing, like Texas slow smoking, and also bake. Who didn't learn how to bake sourdough bread during the COVID crisis? And again, for me, if I get in the kitchen and there's a complicated recipe and there's 6 things on the burners, like I'm just present in the here and now, keeping track mentally of all the different things that need to go on. I'm caramelizing onions here. I'm cooking steak there. There's potatoes in the oven. Like all these sorts of things put me in a state where I'm not worried. And as you know, because we're Bitcoiners, we've got a lot that we worry about in the world. Mm-hmm. So I end up, I've always been like, even since before I discovered Bitcoin, for me, it was like, I was always living in a state of high anxiety. And so it is these sorts of practices, the hobbies, the exercise, the living in the moment, really took me out of the worries that I consistently trouble myself with and make myself miserable about.
So having those sorts of experiences where you just felt like effortlessly present and embodied, that really helped you. That really changed your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it helped me cope with everything else and manage everything else that I was doing in my life. It gave me joy, and in a sense, it's bizarre that I was about to use the word escape, like living in the present is escaping from not living in the present. I think it reveals how upside down my world perspective can be, that the present doesn't feel real, and the what might be feels more real or more terrifying than the what is feels satisfying. And it seems to me a part of being human, but for some of us humans, more so than others, us worriers.
Why do you think that is so common? Like, why do you think so many people go through their whole lives basically like abstracted away from
And trust.
an embodied present experience? Like, I know that's a big
Yeah.
question and probably no one knows the answer to that, but
Yeah.
what comes to your mind as to why that's so common?
Well, I think one of the blessings and curses, the two-sided coin of being human, is we can look further into the future than other animals, and I think of can, right? Like my dog doesn't worry about where his next meal is coming from. If I step out, he thinks, "Oh my God, my master has disappeared." Well, you know, he's not here. It's all in the present, largely in the present, and so we humans have an ability to like forecast out to our kids' lives and to the next generation and to whether we are going to make, like we've got all these time-based things. We live by the clock. We scheduled this call for a time that was in the future, which is now in the present. And I worried a little bit about, will I download the app and will it all work? So we have this capacity to look into the future and to see its uncertainty. And that uncertainty can be terrifying because sometimes bad things happen. So we're like worried about the bad things, and we get kind of obsessed with things. We become overly safety conscious, and fearful. And I think a lot of what anxiety is this fear of a very vague future. Like we may come to some kind of specific term about it, like, oh, I'm afraid of war, or I'm afraid of economic collapse. But those are very abstract things, right? It's not like, oh, I'm afraid a rock is going to fall on my head in the next 2 minutes because there's one precipitously hanging over it. It's like very,
Yeah,
very abstract things going on that give me a general feeling of malaise and worry and, and will I make next month's payment on my credit card or my mortgage? Like this to me is the whole
yeah.
part of the human experience that is not, it's not like the normal human experience. It's the modern Western experience, right? And
Mm,
I do think there's been plenty of other reasons to worry in other times in history, but this whole thing of scheduled payments, scheduled this and scheduled that, like living by a clock, and everyone's in consensus around what time it is, and so we set everything up 4 times. Some of us look forward to certain things at certain times, and some of us dread things at certain times. It makes the world of society work, but it comes with this cost. Am I going to make it there in time? Like, will the plane leave before I get there? Will the cruise ship leave before I get there? You have airplanes and cruise ships leave and have clocks, but you also wouldn't have the worry of missing the plane and missing the cruise ship. So, the train.
sure. Yeah. So that's really interesting. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that I think, let's just call it preoccupation with the future takes up so much mental
Yeah.
bandwidth for most people. But something else that comes to mind, I'd be curious your thoughts on that. I think we're distracted and we're preoccupied by the future. But something I've noticed is that I think most people also lack a visceral connection with their phenomenological experience.
Mm.
Like, if you tell most people, just pay attention right now in this moment, look at your direct experience, like, leave your mind, like, stop attending to thought and just attend to your direct experience, sensations in the body, your sensory experience, what have
Yeah.
you. I think the vast majority of people don't even know where to look. Like, that's not even almost a dimension of experience which is tangible to them. And we've become so abstracted away from the lived reality um,
Yeah.
in favor of just like endless loops of cognition.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is in part why we're seeing something like a mindfulness revolution, right? People trying to
Yeah.
awaken and say, like, oh, I feel the sun on my face right now. I wasn't paying any attention to it because I was walking around worried about
Yeah.
the meeting. But you know what? I feel the breeze coming from this direction. I feel the sun coming, on my face from there. I feel the sweat on my body from the heat that I'm in. I feel the weight on my foot. I feel a callus on my big toe, and that brings you into the moment. I think that's what is so effective about mindfulness practices. They try to get you to close your eyes and focus on the breath, but you can focus on any other experience that you're having. And as you say these things and as you note these things, you return to the here and now. And for the time that you're doing it, you're present, which means you're not worried about the future. You're not worried about, am I going to get an illness from the thing that I just ate or smoked or whatever. I'm here. And that's a really good place.
Yeah.
That's a really good place to be. It's not the full human experience. Like, we're planning for the future and taking action now to do something that will result in some benefit in the future is a big part of the human experience. But something's out of balance in our world right now, I think. And it's like what you're saying, that you believe. I don't know that I agree or disagree. I haven't really given it enough thought that most people can't anchor themselves to the present. I think that's an interesting observation. I'll try to look around and see if I think that's widespread, where they have an inability to focus on the present. I mean, there are times for sure where I'm so anxious about something, you can't get me to focus on the present because I'm so worried about something, but not all the time, not at this point.
So that was Tomer Strolight. It was a pleasure speaking with him. And this has been One Block with Lubka. Looking forward to seeing you next time.